So we're back with episode 17 of Nizi Project Season 2. I'm back. I was sick. I had a really bad cough, and it's hard to speak, basically. But now we're back to normal. So this episode starts off with the second half of, soccer, football. Team Ken ended up winning, and then everyone else was treated to an outdoor meal. Now, they don't show anything from the prize they got for winning soccer, which is an amusement, right? Amusement park trip. Maybe they'll show it in another episode, maybe not, who knows. But during this outdoor meal, JYP, he basically emphasizes that he wants them to really take care of their lifestyle, to have a good balance between work and play, and basically avoid burnout and have some self-care. So after that, we get into the section called the team evaluations, where JYP sits down and looks at all their responses to questions. And it was very interesting. It was a very interesting segment because from A to K you kind of know because they put more emphasis on this, but the personality is really important, and this does play a part in whether or not they get chosen or what cubes they get. But the first question was, they asked, who do they want to be team leader? And it was unanimous. Everyone chose Tomoya, and even Tomoya chose himself. And that makes it a truly unanimous vote. Now, some people are going to say, like, hey, shouldn't he be humble? But I don't think that's the case because, I remember in university, I was always the team leader, and I would never accept not being a team leader. I would build my team from the people there. And so some people just know when they have that kind of ability and comfort level with, like, leading people and having control over their projects. And I feel like Tomoya is one of those guys. And I asked this before as well, like, who should be the team leader? And I said, Tomoya is the one with the best balance of everything. And even JYP himself says, you have to have skill and warmth and whatever. And then they get to the next question, and it's like, who has the best looks? And of course, 8 people choose you. I don't know who else gets chosen except for Haru. I know that Haru gets one choice from you. But when it comes down to it, everyone chose you. But it was kind of funny because Yu does have he hit the genetic jackpot there. He has not only like the most decent looks. I do think Haru is like the best looking one there, but I do recognize that Yu has very good looks as well. But Yu also goes a step further because he has the nicest voice as well. Like just his tone, it's like really good. Like you would have to wish for that. That's not something you can earn or gain through just like practicing or learning how to sing. His tone just sounds good. And another funny thing happens behind the scenes. He is kind of having a sussy moment because he was talking about how he looks at you when he's getting out of the shower and he looks the best. And so that was an interesting moment for me, just like hearing that. But anyways, after that, we have another question. Who do you want to debut? And what's interesting about this is you basically says, it's not why. It's not who do you want to debut. It's why do you have to debut? And so the interesting thing is Yu's response is that he wants to help his family, and he talks about his mom specifically. And I think it's interesting that here's someone who he recognizes his advantages, and he wants to use them to help his loved ones. Whereas everyone else is kind of like, oh, I made a lot of friends here. These guys define me, and they're all really good friends. And JYP basically says, hey, the teamwork makes the difference between groups that last and ones that don't. And so I do think it's interesting that most of the people basically said, hey, these are our friends, that this is where we're meant to be, like they feel it now. But Yu seems to have not forgotten his original goals when joining this competition. So after that, that's the end of this segment, and we get into the third stage battle. And JYP basically tells these guys there will be eliminations, and it motivates them to kind of get first. Everyone at this point is really close, and they actually don't want to lose other members. So when he tells them this, like, they're concerned. At this point, they're probably closest they will ever be. I don't think there's anyone in there that anyone would not want to be there. Like, even, like, I would say the person in the worst rating here, the person who I'm least confident in is probably Taiga. And I would say that it would come down to Taiga and maybe Maraku, but I don't even feel like the team could move forward with those guys in it, and it wouldn't really hurt them. But the people in charge of this group may think otherwise. And so no one really wants anyone else to leave or go home. And I feel like that's fair. I feel like if they were just like kids in the hood and they built this team themselves, they wouldn't have eliminated anyone. But because this is a company being in charge of this, someone's maybe more people have to go. Maybe 3 people will be cut from this, maybe 4 or 5. I think a lot of people are going to be cut. Just I don't think they're going to want to invest in that many people at the same time. But anyways, we finally get into the third stage battles, and we only get to see one performance out of the 3. And so they divided them up into 3 teams. I won't bother going over who's in the teams. I'll just talk about who performs. So the first team that performs is Team Heart Hunter. And JYP basically tells them off the bat that he likes their vibe. He likens them to 2PM, and he says they have an extraordinary aura. Now, this would be like a huge compliment, I think, if not for what we find out behind the scenes, that JYP basically formed this group. And he said that he wanted them. He saw them already as 2PM because this song was chosen for them as well. And so, in that respect, these guys are sort of favorites, I would say. They're getting some favoritism. So behind the scenes, they have a game plan, which is to work on their expressions. And what they do to emphasize this effort is to analyze Korean lyrics. And then they have to perform for JYP in practice. Now, JYP, after seeing them perform, he says they have a good sense of unity, but the lines aren't good and the accents don't match. And so he ends up micromanaging their moves as they go through it another time. And he tells them what's wrong, which I think is very helpful. But basically, the gist of it is that they have to go back to securing the fundamentals. I think that they had the right idea by focusing on expressions. It's just that you can't deny the fundamentals. And so there's no getting around it. And now they're going to have to spend time refining and getting really precise. So we get to their performance. And, my impression seeing this is that this is a pretty pro performance. Like, even from the very beginning, they were mostly clean. There were times when I would say that in terms of the precision, Yu was the only one who was slightly mushy sometimes. But that's very slight. And actually during strength moves, he actually had better form than everyone else as well. So would you say that they're perfectly in unison? Not necessarily, but they were moving in unison. And maybe just Yu was better at keeping his identity, whereas the other ones conformed a little bit more. But this is kind of like a nitpicking kind of thing. I don't really think that they were out of sync in any way. But I would just say that that's what I noticed, is that, yeah, his lines weren't as clean, but when his strength moves were in play, he maintained his frame, looked more masculine than even, like, I would say Haru did. But JYP's opinion of them is that they were very good and they achieved something which was basically impossible. And he said that they're like a team that's already debuted with perfect timing and sync. And their expressions and acting were excellent. So in the end, their focus on expressions paid off. And then, in terms of individual feedback, he didn't really give much individual feedback to anyone except Haru, who said he gave a flawless performance. And so that's basically the end of the episode. There's not really anything else much to say. In my opinion, these 4, they seem like debut locks to me. Because I don't think Haru and Yu are touchable in terms of, like, not making the group. And Seita, I've seen very good growth out of him in terms of just behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera. When he's performing, is that he looks the part and he's very good at acting the part. And then behind the scenes, like even just looking at him play soccer, I noticed something. There's a drive in him, a very good strength. And then Ken, I think Ken is kind of maybe it's unspoken, but he seems to be a very like JYP identifying kind of favorite in that respect, because if you looked at any person on this group of 12 kids, I would say that Ken is probably the one who gives off the JYP vibes the most. But he's not like JYP, though. But I feel like maybe JYP taps into that, and he kind of favors him a little bit. But I would say that Ken is more kind of like the kind of regular guy, the straight guy, the normal guy, like the office guy, And because of that, he kind of like stabilizes everyone in a way, because it's like a contrast as well. But like he's not failing in any way. in that respect, he's like, if you're like thinking about Big Bang, he's like Singri compared to like everyone else. But anyways, I guess that's it. Not really much else to say. I didn't even bother checking if there was anything for bingo, because we already got so much bingo in the last episode. And I didn't do an episode last week, but I did. If you're subscribed, then you do get my community posts, and I posted that there would be no episode during the. I call it a filler episode because basically it was filler. It was just outdoor sports, and I didn't want to comment on any of that. I didn't want to taint it in any way. And it's just guys having fun. I didn't want to get. I didn't want to say anything about it. But then I did. I wanted to mention I did watch it, and I did notice that Seita was doing a really good job in terms of like. I just noticed his like drive. And anyways, I guess that's it. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next episode.